We're back in the 2023 BMW M2, and we are in a mountain road in South Carolina. This is Gabe from BimmerFile. Let's go for a drive. This is the manual transmission M2. This is the last manual transmission M car ever. So let's savor this moment and appreciate the analog quality of this drive. It's an incredible road, and it's an incredible car. You know, this is the M2, the stock M2. We're going to see a competition. We're going to see a CS. Maybe we'll see a CSL. But I believe this will be the only one for the manual transmission, and therefore it is pretty special. This is a car that is also rear-wheel drive. It's got that sort of pure M formula of manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, and it is a it is a little monster. Lots of torque, lots of power, of course. I'm a 1M owner, so you know it's always easy. I always go to, what is this? How does this compare to the 1M? They're so different. I mean, the 1M has got a much shorter wheelbase. It's a little rascal. Like, I mean, it wants to be sideways all the time. This is a car that really feels like an M3 from 10 years ago. And in some cases, of course, the turbocharging has completely altered the character of the car. I mean, you don't wind this thing out to get to the power you want. You just stomp on the throttle. But still, you know, what M has done here is they've actually, and this is kind of surprising, it doesn't feel as immediate as the 1M. Sorry to go back to that, but as a foundation, it's kind of interesting because the 1M has a sharper throttle response, lighter flywheel, so maybe less of a throttle response thing, but it revs quicker. And I think what's interesting is that we have just a different character because of that. And this car it's more livable day to day. There's no question about it. But it's got this Jekyll and Hyde character to it, which M has really been focused on in the past 10 years or so with drive modes. A lot of technology is, of course, built into that, but also just the character of the engine. Because the torque, they're able to really allow for things that, you know, an E46 M3 owner would really never have imagined. I mean, second gear starts are not a problem. You know, this is a car that is very torque rich. The steering is light and easy. The clutch pedal, maybe a little too light, to be honest with you, but it's an easy car to drive day to day. I think that's really the point here. And it's also, you know, in a lot of ways, it's pretty, you know, full of utility. I mean, I know it's a two-door coupe, but it's got a decent sized trunk. The rear seats are fine for short rides for adults. And, you know, in a lot of ways, like I said, it's got the utility that you need if you're looking at this as a second car, or if you don't have a family. It's an awesome choice. I mean, as a daily driver, I envy all those who have this in the garage. My 1M is not daily driven. I'm kind of stricken with guilt. It's racking up miles on that thing sometimes, which is probably the wrong perspective. But you know, this is a car that just begs to be driven, and driven, you know, in all situations. I think that's the thing that I've really come to enjoy in my time with the M2, is that because of its sort of wide gamut of capabilities, it's a daily driver, it's a track car, it is a grocery getter, it's anything you really need it to be. And I think that's what makes it pretty special. You know, you look at the M3 and the M4. Well, let's stick with the M4 for a second. You know, that's a car that is big, for one. I mean, it's if you took the badge off and went back in time and told somebody this was an M car, I think they would have probably guessed it was an M6 or an M8 or something along those lines, because of just the length of the car. And I think that when you look at that car and you just look at it critically, there's not much more there from a space standpoint than what we have in this car. And so what M has done is, this isn't the party line, this is not what they say, but in a lot of ways, they've just taken that M4 and sharpened it up. You know, they've cut off the excess. They've created a car that's more focused on performance driving and really driving engagement. And they've created a car that is, I don't know, old school. I mean, for lack of a better term, I hate to throw that term around when I've got electronics everywhere. I've got a giant screen in front of me. But this is as close as old school as you're going to get in 2023 from the BMW brand. And listen, I applaud it. I think it's really one of the best M cars in the past 10 years. Does it match the M2 competition? In some ways, it's such a different car. It's hard to compare, but you know, in short, it's a better daily. There's no question. It's got better performance. You do lose a little bit of that tactile feel from that car. You lose a little bit of that engagement. Things are just a touch more distant than they used to be. But you know, you're kind of overwhelmed by the performance aspects, and you know, again, like just the livability of this thing. So it's really a double-edged sword. Now, comparing this to the CS, the M2 CS, the M2 CS would win all day. I think that there's two cars of the past 15 years from the M brand that stand out, and the 1M, you know, and I'm somewhat biased there, but the 1M is certainly one of those. But it's the M2 CS that's the other, and I would say a quick, or sort of a close third is the M3 and M4 CS from the previous generation. In manual form, those cars are just exceptional, and this car doesn't quite get there. The manual transmission is good. It's not perfection, unfortunately. You know, the first to second throw is a little notchy. The clutch is a little light, so the controls aren't as perfectly judged as you'd want them to be. You know, in a Porsche GT4 718 Spider, you know, in even a 718 GTS, for instance, you know, that car has a manual transmission that feels like it's like a bolt action rifle. It feels machined and just iterated to perfection. We're not quite here with this, but we've got to celebrate the fact it's here, right? I mean, this is a manual transmission in a car in 2023 with over 400 horsepower driven by the rear wheels. You gotta love it, and the M2 lives up to a lot of the hype. It is worth every penny of its $60,000+ in my view. In fact, I would go so far as to say, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is a bargain. When you think about what you really need on this car, I spec them out all the time, and I don't get over $65,000. And I know that's not inconsequential. That's a lot of money. But given what an M4 costs, and given what an M3 costs, this is a deal. This is truly an entry-level M car to be incredibly proud of. And it's not entry-level when you look at it as the pinnacle of driver engagement from the M brand. So the BMW M2 is absolutely the best M car on sale today, unless you count, of course, the M3 CS. But if you want that manual and you want that purity and you want that old school M feel, this is it, and it is outstanding.